They laughed as I signed the divorce papers, calling me a failure. What happened next shocked them all, especially when she lost everything. At 37, I thought I understood betrayal. My wife Catherine invited her entire family to watch as she presented me with divorce papers on my birthday surprise. "I'm leaving you for someone who isn't such a failure." Her father actually laughed and said we never thought she'd actually marry someone so beneath our standards. They had Dom Perignon ready to celebrate my devastation. I smiled calmly, signed the papers, and left. Today, exactly 7 months later, she was sleeping in her Mercedes outside my house, begging to talk, and her frantic "please answer" texts flooding my phone. I never thought I'd be typing out something like this. Part of me still can't believe this nightmare actually happened, but here we are. Fair warning, this is going to be a long one, so buckle up. So I turned 37 last Saturday, not exactly a milestone birthday, but Catherine, my wife, well, soon-to-be ex-wife, told me she was planning something extraordinary for the occasion. She seemed weirdly enthusiastic about it the whole week before, constantly on her phone, smiling to herself with this secretive expression that made my stomach churn. At the time, I thought maybe she was planning some surprise party or something thoughtful. After all the tension we'd been drowning in lately, I was desperate for any sign that we could salvage what we'd built together. Things between us had been strained for months. Not screaming match strained, but that cold, suffocating tension that honestly feels worse sometimes. Like living with a beautiful stranger who barely tolerates your existence. We'd been married for 7 years, met in college where she was this stunning business major from old money, and I was the scholarship kid working 3 jobs to afford ramen and textbooks. Classic story, right? Her family never approved of me. Never. Her father, Hamilton, yes, that's actually his name, like some character from a Jane Austen novel, would make these cutting little comments about my humble beginnings at every holiday dinner. Her mother, Victoria, would ask how that little job of yours was progressing, even after I got promoted to senior project manager at the engineering firm. The condescension dripped from every word like honey laced with arsenic. Then there were the constant Instagram posts from Catherine showing off our modest suburban home, which wasn't fancy enough for her family's standards, but was the best we could afford while I was putting in 60-hour weeks to save for something better. Catherine kept posting these captions about making the best of simple pleasures or embracing minimalist living, like we were some charity case she was graciously enduring. She was always comparing our life to her cousin Vivian, who married some investment banker and lived in a dam estate with actual peacocks on the grounds. The last few months, Catherine had been spending more time with her family, coming home late from networking events, smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She'd get these texts that made her smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in what felt like years. I'm not an idiot. I had suspicions crawling around in my chest like spiders, but I kept thinking if I just worked harder, got that senior partnership maybe, things would improve. Maybe she'd look at me the way she used to, back when my ambition impressed her instead of embarrassing her. So back to my birthday. I came home from work, yes. I had to work on my birthday. Welcome to middle management life, and the apartment was eerily quiet. Catherine texted saying to meet her at her parents' estate for my surprise. Already weird since her parents' mansion was the last place I'd want to celebrate anything, but whatever. I figured maybe she was trying to build bridges with them, show them I wasn't the complete disappointment they thought I was. I drive up to their estate in the suburbs, this sprawling colonial that probably cost more than I'll make in a lifetime, and Catherine meets me at the mahogany front door with this smile that made my blood run cold. It didn't reach her eyes, and there was something predatory about it, like a cat that's cornered a mouse and is savoring the moment before the kill. The living room was full of people. Her parents, her sister Isabella, a couple of cousins, some family friends I recognized from past gatherings where I'd felt like an exotic zoo animal on display. They were all holding crystal champagne flutes, and there was this thick, expectant silence when I walked in, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Catherine says, "Michael, we have something very special for your birthday," and her father actually snickers. Not laughs, snickers, like a fucking cartoon villain who's about to reveal his master plan. So I'm standing there in my wrinkled work clothes, feeling underdressed and confused, thinking maybe they got me a watch or something equally inappropriate, when Catherine pulls out this thick manila envelope from behind her back. For a split second, my heart jumped thinking maybe it was plane tickets for a vacation we desperately needed, something to reconnect us. Then she says these exact words, with the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen her wear. Surprise. I'm leaving you for someone who isn't such a failure. The room goes completely silent except for her father, who starts full on laughing like he just heard the funniest joke of his life. I'm standing there frozen, my brain trying to process what the hell is happening, when her father says, "We never thought she'd actually marry someone so beneath our standards." Thank God, she finally came to her senses. Catherine shoves the envelope into my hands, divorce papers, already filled out, just waiting for my signature. Her mother literally pops a bottle of Dom Perignon and starts pouring more glasses for everyone. They had planned this whole thing as some kind of sick celebration, like my humiliation was the main course at their dinner party. I don't know what they expected. Maybe for me to cry, to beg, to make a scene that would give them something to laugh about for years. Instead, something inside me just hardened, like a door slamming shut on 7 years of trying to prove I was worthy of their daughter. I looked at each of their smug faces, at the woman I thought I'd grow old with, and I felt nothing. Like I was watching this happen to someone else, some poor bastard in a movie I didn't want to be watching. I asked Catherine for a pen. Her smile faltered just a bit. Guess that wasn't the reaction she'd scripted in her head. Her dad handed me his fancy Mont Blanc, probably worth more than my monthly salary. I went to their pristine white marble countertop, spread the papers out, and signed every single line without saying a word. No dramatic speeches, no begging, just the scratch of expensive ink on legal documents. The only sound was my pen moving across paper and someone awkwardly clearing their throat. When I finished, I looked directly at Catherine and said, "Thanks for the birthday gift. Best one I've ever received." Then I walked out. Didn't slam the door, didn't curse, just left while they stood there in confused silence. The looks on their faces, when I didn't break down, almost worth the whole humiliation. Almost. I got in my Honda Civic and just drove. No destination in mind, just needed to move, to put distance between me and that house of horrors. Found myself at this dive bar on the wrong side of town where no one knew me, where I could drink whiskey and stare at my phone as Catherine's texts started rolling in. "Why didn't you say anything? Are you seriously not going to fight for us? You're just proving my point by running away like this." About 3 drinks in, something changed. The numbness wore off and this cold, calculating rage started building. Not the explosive kind that makes you do something stupid you'll regret later, but the methodical kind that makes you want to burn someone's world down piece by piece, watching them realize too late what they've lost. See, what Catherine and her precious family didn't know was how much I'd observed over 7 years of marriage to someone from a family that treats service staff like furniture. You hear things when rich people think you're invisible. You see things when they assume you're too stupid to understand the implications. The accountant who drinks too much at parties and talks about creative bookkeeping. The cousin who's sleeping with her brother-in-law. The father's business trips that seem to involve more pleasure than business. 7 years of being the outsider gave me a front row seat to all their dirty little secrets. So I did 3 things that night. First, I called my buddy Frank, who happens to be the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. Second, I started screenshotting every suspicious text Catherine had sent or received that I could access through our shared cloud storage. Third, I made a list of every business contact and mutual friend who needed to hear my side of the story before Catherine could spin her narrative. I didn't go home that night, crashed at Frank's guest room, and woke up with my phone exploding with more texts from Catherine, now sounding more panicked than smug. Apparently, she expected me to come crawling back, begging to work things out, maybe offering to change myself into whatever she wanted me to be. Instead, by noon the next day, Frank had already filed counter paperwork that made her family's lawyer choke on his retainer fee. I'd withdrawn my half from our joint accounts, left hers untouched. I'm not an idiot. And I'd rented a storage unit where I moved all my important stuff while she was having brunch with her family, probably laughing about how devastated I must be. It's been a week now, and I'm staying at an extended stay hotel while I figure out my next move. Catherine's gone from smug to confused to angry to frantically calling me every hour. Her last text said, "This isn't how this was supposed to go." No shit, Catherine. This isn't how any of it was supposed to go. Frank says I'm in a stronger position than she expected. No kids, thank God, my name on most of our major assets, and enough evidence of her affair. Oh yeah, Did I mention she's been sleeping with her coworker Dylan for months? To make her disappointment claims look pretty fucking ironic. So that's where I am now, planning my next steps carefully. The rage hasn't subsided, but it's focused now, like a laser instead of a wildfire. Her family thought I was nothing, treated me like dirt for years, celebrated the end of my marriage like it was New Year's Eve. They have no idea what's coming. Anyone else ever deal with such a public humiliation from a spouse? How did you handle it? Because right now I'm walking the line between taking the high road and scorched earth, and I'll be honest, scorched earth is looking pretty tempting. Holy shit, you guys. First of all, I was not expecting my original post to blow up like that. My inbox is destroyed. Thanks for all the awards and support, and to the 5 people who DM'd me their divorce attorney recommendations, respect. So it's been 4 months since the birthday party from hell, and some of you have been asking for an update. Buckle up, because there have been developments that even I didn't see coming. Where to start? I guess with the bombshell I discovered 3 days after my last post. So I'm going through our shared cloud storage to download photos I wanted to keep before Catherine could delete them, and I stumbled across a folder called Quarterly Reports. Weird thing is, it was created around the time Catherine started acting sketchy, being secretive about everything. Being the suspicious bastard I now am, I clicked on it. It wasn't Quarterly Reports. It was hundreds of screenshots of texts between Catherine and her coworker Dylan, going back 10 months. Complete with cute pet names, hotel meeting plans, and enough explicit photos to stock a damn porn site. Pro tip: if you're cheating, maybe don't save the evidence to a shared cloud account. Just saying. There were selfies of them together at places Catherine told me she was working late. Turns out she wasn't analyzing market trends at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, unless Dylan's body was somehow involved in the financial projections. I forwarded everything to Frank, who literally just texted back, "Christmas came early this year." The guy's a savage, and I'm here for it. So that's discovery number 1. But here's where things get interesting. After the initial shock wore off, I made 3 decisions. 1. I was going to focus on getting my life together instead of just plotting revenge. 2. I was going to let the divorce process play out through Frank without engaging with Catherine directly. 3. I was going to start building a new life that would eventually make her regret everything she threw away. The apartment we shared had too many ghosts, too many memories of who I used to be when I was trying to be good enough for her family. So I found a month-to-month rental, nothing fancy, but it has this small balcony where I can actually see stars at night. First night there, I sat outside with a beer, looked up at the sky, and realized I hadn't felt peace like that in years. Actual peace, not just the absence of conflict. Started hitting the gym regularly. Not because I'm trying to get a revenge body, though not gonna lie, that was part of the motivation, but because I needed somewhere to put all this anger that was eating me alive. First week, I could barely lift the bar without my arms shaking like noodles. Now I'm actually starting to see definition. Who knew emotions could be channeled into muscle mass? The divorce proceedings have been interesting. Catherine apparently expected to get half of everything plus alimony because, in her words, she sacrificed career opportunities for our marriage. Frank actually laughed when he heard this. Turns out those sacrificed opportunities are hard to prove when you've been spending your work hours sending explicit texts to your coworker instead of, working. The affair evidence was our ace in the hole. Catherine's family had always positioned themselves as these perfect, upstanding pillars of the community. Her dad Hamilton is always posting on LinkedIn about family values and integrity in business. The threat of their precious daughter's affair becoming public knowledge during divorce proceedings made them suddenly very agreeable to Frank's terms. One weird moment came when I was clearing out the last of my stuff from our apartment. Catherine showed up unexpectedly, first time I'd seen her since the birthday ambush. She looked different. Hair all messy, wearing sweatpants, which she literally never did before. Dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't been sleeping. She started with this whole speech about how she made a mistake, how Dylan wasn't who she thought he was, how maybe we could talk about reconciliation. I just walked past her with my box of stuff and said I'd have my attorney contact hers if she had anything legal to discuss. The look on her face, like she genuinely couldn't comprehend that I wasn't falling to my knees with gratitude for this second chance, was honestly priceless. So here's where things stand now. The divorce is almost finalized, No alimony thanks to the affair evidence. We're selling the apartment and splitting proceeds, though I let her keep most of the furniture since I'm starting fresh anyway. I've reconnected with old friends. Catherine always hated to remember my buddy Marcus, who she said was a bad influence because he once brought grocery store wine to dinner instead of something with a French name. Turns out he's still the same solid guy he always was, and now we hang out weekly for poker nights. I started that woodworking hobby Catherine always mocked. Nothing huge, just refinishing vintage furniture. Something I always liked doing, but Catherine thought was beneath us. Made my first sale on Etsy last week. Profit was like $32 after expenses, but damn it felt good. Here's where it gets juicy. Catherine's family business, high-end commercial real estate development, has hit some major snags lately. Apparently, they had this massive hotel project that lost its primary investor. This happened right after I had lunch with my old college roommate, who, plot twist, now works for that investment firm. Did I mention anything specific about Catherine's family during lunch? Nope. Did I accept his LinkedIn connection request afterward? Absolutely. Catherine's sister Isabella reached out to me last week. She was always the only decent one in that family, said Catherine has been a complete wreck. Apparently, Dylan dumped her after her dad tried to get him a promotion at their company. Turns out Dylan was only interested in Catherine for her family connections. Shocked Pikachu face, right? Catherine's Instagram has gone from daily posts about her hashtag blessed life to complete radio silence. Meanwhile, I've been posting occasional updates, hiking trips, furniture projects, nights out with friends. Nothing flashy, just me living a normal, happy life. Her best friend accidentally liked one of my photos at 3 a.m., then quickly unliked it. So I know they're watching. Last night was what would have been our anniversary. I was sitting on my balcony, scrolling through Netflix, feeling pretty okay actually, when my phone lit up with a text from Catherine. I know you probably hate me, but I can't stop thinking about where we would be if I hadn't ruined everything. I miss your terrible dad jokes and the way you always made coffee for both of us, even when we were fighting. The apartment feels so empty now. Dylan was a mistake. My family was wrong. I was wrong. Please, can we just talk? I'm not above begging at this point. I stared at that text for a full hour, typed and deleted about 20 different responses. In the end, I just put my phone down and went to bed without replying. The thing is, 4 months ago, I would have given anything to get a text like that from her. Now, I'm not even sure what I want anymore. The anger is still there, but it's different now. Less consuming, more like background noise. This morning, I woke up to find she'd sent 7 more messages overnight, each more desperate than the last. The final one just said, "I'm parked outside your building. Please come down." I looked out my window, and sure enough, there was her white Mercedes in the visitor parking. She was just sitting there, looking up at the building like some tragic heroine in a movie she'd written herself. I closed the blinds and made coffee. What would you do? Part of me wants to hear what she has to say. Another part thinks opening that door, even a crack, would undo all the progress I've made. And a small, petty part that I'm not proud of wants her to feel exactly what I felt that day at her parents' house. Life is weird, man. 4 months ago, I thought my world was ending. Now I'm actually starting to think whatever comes next might be better than what I had before. I never expected to be writing a third update to this saga, but life keeps throwing curveballs. For those just tuning in, check my post history for the full backstory. Basically, my ex-wife Catherine ambushed me with divorce papers at my birthday party in front of her entire family, who literally popped Dom Perignon to celebrate getting rid of me. Classy stuff. So it's been exactly 7 months since that lovely birthday surprise, and a lot has changed. I moved out of that month-to-month rental into an actual house, nothing fancy, just a small 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood with a yard where I can finally get a dog. More on that later. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago with surprisingly little drama. In the end, Catherine's family lawyer folded like a cheap tent once Frank showed them the receipts of the affair. My woodworking side hustle has been doing better than expected and not quitting my day job better, but enough to fund my coffee addiction and pay for streaming services. I've got regular customers now who specifically request my style. Still weird to think people actually like the stuff Catherine used to call garage sale rejects. Anyway, I was having a pretty normal Thursday night, ordered pizza, binging that new series everyone's talking about on Netflix, when my Ring doorbell notification goes off at like midnight. I check it thinking it's probably some drunk neighbor who got the wrong address again. Instead, I see Catherine's Mercedes parked across the street, just sitting there with the lights off. At first, I thought maybe she'd dropped someone off, but the car didn't move for over an hour. So I did what any normal person would do, ignored it, and went to bed. But I couldn't sleep knowing she was just waiting out there. Around 2 in the morning, I checked the camera again, and her car was still there. That's when my phone started blowing up with texts. Michael, please, I know you're home. I just need 5 minutes. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Please answer. I've made a horrible mistake, and I don't know how to fix it. And the kicker that actually made me get out of bed. I've been sleeping in my car for 3 days. I have nowhere else to go. I went to the window, and sure enough, I could see her reclined in the driver's seat of her Mercedes, the same car her daddy bought her for her 26th birthday. The one she once told me was entry-level luxury, even though it cost more than I made in 8 months. I debated what to do. Part of me, the petty part, wanted to just close the blinds and let her enjoy her car camping experience. But I'm not actually a monster, so I threw on sweatpants and a hoodie and went outside. The look on her face when I tapped on her window was rough. Her makeup was smeared, hair unwashed, wearing what looked like the same designer outfit from her last Instagram post a week ago. She scrambled to unlock the door, almost falling out in her rush to talk to me. First thing I noticed was the smell, not like Bo, but that stale fast food and desperation smell you get from living in your car. Second thing I noticed was she'd lost weight, like a lot. Catherine was always thin, but now she looked almost skeletal. She started rambling immediately, half crying, half talking so fast I could barely understand her. It took a minute to make sense of what she was saying. Apparently, Dylan, a fair guy, wasn't just sleeping with her. He was also funneling information about her family's business to competitors. Once Catherine's dad found out, he fired Dylan, who promptly dumped Catherine and disappeared with a bunch of confidential information. But it gets better. Catherine, in her infinite wisdom, had been covering for Dylan at work, changing reports to make his numbers look better because she was in love. When everything came to light, Daddy Dearest finally had enough and cut her off completely. No more job at the family business, no more allowance, no more paid luxury apartment. She'd been couch surfing with friends for weeks, but had burned through everyone's goodwill. Her last roommate kicked her out for not paying rent, which is how she ended up sleeping in her Mercedes outside my house as a last resort. I couldn't help but ask why she didn't just go to her parents' mansion. That's when she dropped the bomb that her dad Hamilton's business was under federal investigation for some shady financial stuff that Dylan had exposed as revenge. Turns out Mr. High and Mighty had been cutting corners in cooking books for years. Their assets were temporarily frozen, and they'd had to sell the estate while the investigation continued. The karmic justice was almost too perfect to believe. I invited her inside, and not because I was considering taking her back, but because it was freezing and I didn't need a hypothermic ex-wife on my conscience. She walked in and immediately started crying again, this time about how nice my place looked. It's literally just normal furniture with plants I've managed to keep alive, but compared to living in a car, I guess it was the Four Seasons. We sat at my kitchen table, and I made coffee while she told me the whole story. How her parents had pressured her into the divorce after finding out about Dylan, convincing her she could trade up while taking half my assets. How they'd planned the whole birthday ambush as a way to humiliate me so I'd sign quickly without fighting. How she'd realized within weeks that she'd made a terrible mistake, but her pride kept her from admitting it. She actually said, and I quote, "I thought you'd fight for me." That's when I laughed. Not meanly, just at the absurdity of it all. She orchestrates this public humiliation, tells me I'm a failure, serves me divorce papers on my birthday, and expected me to what? Beg her to reconsider. Write a heartfelt letter about how I couldn't live without her. I asked her what she wanted from me now. More tears, then she laid it out. She wanted to try again. She'd learned her lesson and grown as a person in 7 months, apparently. She had nowhere to go, no money, no job prospects. Her expensive degree was useless without Daddy's connections. She thought maybe she could move in with me while we figured things out. I let her finish. Then I did something that surprised even me. I thanked her. I thanked her for the divorce. for showing me exactly who she and her family were, for forcing me to rebuild my life on my own terms. The past 7 months had been hard, but also weirdly liberating. For the first time since college, I was making choices based on what I wanted, not what would please her or impress her family. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then came more tears and bargaining. She'd do anything to fix things. She'd changed. She'd never appreciated what she had. I told her she could crash on my couch for one night because it was late, and I wasn't sending anyone out to sleep in their car. But in the morning, she needed to figure out her next steps. Steps that didn't involve me. The look of shock on her face was almost comical. I don't think Catherine had ever been told no in her entire privileged life. Morning came, and I made breakfast because that's just what decent humans do. While we were eating, her phone rang. It was her dad. She put it on speaker, old habit, I guess, and I heard Hamilton's voice for the first time since the birthday party. Gone was the smug condescension, replaced by something I'd never heard from him before: desperation. Their business was barely hanging on. Investors were pulling out left and right. They needed help from someone with connections in the construction industry, and Catherine had mentioned I'd been doing well. He actually asked if I would consider meeting with him to discuss potential opportunities for mutual benefit. I almost choked on my coffee. The same man who laughed at me for being beneath his daughter was now practically begging for my help. Catherine looked at me with this weird mix of hope and embarrassment. I told Hamilton I wasn't interested in any business arrangements with him, but I knew someone who might be able to help. Rebecca, the woman I'd been seeing for the past 6 weeks. She's actually brilliant at helping struggling businesses rebuild their reputation. Just friends so far, but honestly the healthiest relationship I've had in years. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Hamilton asked for her contact information. I gave it to him, ended the call, and looked at Catherine. The realization was dawning on her face that not only was I not taking her back, but I'd moved on completely. She left an hour later with a backpack of essentials and an Uber to her sister Isabella's place, who'd agreed to let her stay temporarily. As she was leaving, she asked if I would ever forgive her. I told her I already had, not for her sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger was exhausting, and I had furniture to refinish and a life to live. Speaking of which, meet Chester, the three-legged rescue golden retriever I adopted last weekend. He drools on my couch and steals my socks, but he's the best decision I've made in years. So that's the end of the Catherine saga. 7 months from Dom Perignon celebrating my devastation to sleeping in her Mercedes outside my house. Life comes at you fast. I don't know what happens next for her. I hope she figures her shit out. I hope her family learns something from all this. But mostly, I'm just looking forward to all the things I never got to do when I was trying to fit into their world. Traveling without worrying about five-star accommodations, making furniture without being told it's embarrassing, getting a dog that sheds all over everything. For those who followed this whole crazy story, thanks for the support, the advice, and occasionally calling me out when I was being a dick. It helped more than you know. Anyone else come out the other side of a nightmare and realize it was actually the best thing that ever happened to you?